There we go. We've got Stephanie Warren here as well. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We welcome you to this meeting of the Lower Connecticut River Valley Regional Planning Committee. It is Monday, June 27th, 2022 at 7 p.m. and we're meeting this evening via Zoom teleconference. Eliza, would you please call the roll?
Sure. From Chester, I see Cindy Lignar. I do not see Elaine. From Clinton, Martin Jaffe is here. From Cromwell, Anthony LaCava is here. Is Nick here? No. From Deep River, Tony Bolduc. From Durham, Frank DeFelice. Is Mike from East Hampton on the meeting? No. From Essex, I see Sandra Childress. From Haddam, Raul de Brigard. From Killingworth, Stephanie Warren. Alec Martin did indicate that he's coming, but I don't see him. From Lyme, Mary Stone. Middlefield, Paul Pizzo. Middletown, Catherine Johnson and Kellen Atherton are both here. Old Lyme, Harold Thompson. Old Saybrook, Doug McCracken is here. And Portland, Bob Ellsworth is here. I don't think Chantal is here.
Right.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Chantel's on vacation, so Bob Ellsworth is here from Portland.
Yes,
Oh.
I see you, Bob.
Very good. All right, Eliza, do we have some alternates we can see?
Yep, we're gonna seat Cindy in Chester, Anthony in Cromwell, Sandra in Essex, Stephanie in Killingworth, and Bob in Portland.
All right, wonderful. And I noticed Mary
I'm
Stone,
also an alternate from Clinton.
Oh, and Martin, I'm sorry, Martin from Clinton. I
Right.
didn't.
Thank
you're
you,
here, but I
Martin.
didn't-
Thank you, Martin. And I see we have
This
a
is
few others
Stephanie.
that join us.
I'm sorry, this is Stephanie. If Alex shows up, he becomes the main, right? And then I back out of alternate.
Yes, that would be fine,
Okay.
if he does.
If he-
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Eliza, for calling the roll and helping us seat the alternates. Motion to approve the agenda as presented would be in order.
I move.
I was Raul. Thank you, Raul. Is there a second to Raul's motion?
Don't all scream at once.
Thank you. Bill Neal, thank you for seconding. And with that, motion to approve the agenda would be in order. So everybody that is in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining, I declare the motion passed. And that moves us to public comment. So if there's any members of the public who wish to speak on any matter, please feel free. And if you don't know how to use the raise hand button or icon on the screen, that's fine. You can just wave us and we'll respond. Members of the public, your turn to speak. All right. So with that, not hearing any, we will move on to the approval of the minutes of the past meeting. These should have been in your packet. That was distributed electronically to the members.
I also move on that.
Thank you, Raul. Raul's made a motion to approve. Is that correct, Raul?
Yep.
And a second?
I'll
And second
second
by
that.
Mary Stone. Thank you, Mary. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? All right, I declare the motion passed. With that, that brings us to referrals. I have a note that there are none. I'm not sure if Torrance is with us this evening. Is that still the case, Sam?
Yes, and Torrance is he is trying to get on the call right now. Let's Eliza, let's send him a direct invite.
Yep.
But I think that's correct. So I'm going to just I'm going to send him an invite. If there's anything, if there are any referrals, he can update us when he is able to join.
Yeah, we can circle back if we need to. All right, fine. So with that, we'll move on to item number 8, the Regional Housing Plan presentation. This is the opening of the public comment period. So just a brief introduction to the RPC members. The staff at RiverCOG has been working diligently on putting this plan together along with the consultants. I know that it was just sent out a little while ago, and I mean a little while ago, like within the last few hours, I believe. So I don't expect that you've had time to look at it, but that's okay, because what Sam and the staff at RiverCOG is going to do is present that plan to us this evening. And then we'll talk about starting the timeline and starting the timetable and the window for public comment and so forth. Sam, who would you like to give the presentation to?
So just first of all, I just want to thank RiverCOG staff. Megan, who's been our project manager on this project, has done an amazing job bringing together and coordinating not only 10 Section 830J affordable housing plans, but also creating a regional document as well, and coordinating between 12 municipalities, a team of 3 different consultants, and getting everything, shepherding this whole project through. So I want to thank Megan for an excellent job and trying to get this done within as close as to the June 1st deadline as possible. And so I'm going to, and then finally, I'd also like to say that this was a project that some of our towns were able to receive grants to help pay for, but the rest did not. And so I was very happy that I was able to find some funding in the RiverCOG's regional services grant to pay for this project to help all of our towns comply with this underfunded state mandate. So,
Thank you.
And all right, so with that, I'm going to turn over to Megan and to Ben Lovejoy, who've been has been working very hard last week and over the weekend to make sure that we had a document for you to see today. So,
all right, thank you. And I'm going to ask the RPC members to they have questions, just jot them down so that Ben and Megan can do their presentation. And then we'll go back with the questions, because this is really the beginning of this whole thing. So we have plenty of time. All right, Ben, Megan.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. That was very kind. Am I able to share my screen? Not quite yet.
Not yet.
yeah, Eliza needs to make you a host.
Yep, sorry.
No worries.
All right, you should
All
now
right, we're good. Okay. All right, are we seeing the slides?
We are.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Wait 1 second. All right. Good evening to all. I'm very excited to present the draft regional housing plan to you tonight. Members of the RPC were, as Frank mentioned, provided a copy of the plan very recently, and following tonight's presentation, the draft will be posted on the RiverCOG website, where we've provided a forum for public comment. Before I begin the presentation, I'd just like to say that we're very proud of this effort and proud of our region for coming together voluntarily to consider and address housing issues in a collaborative way. That said, this plan is worth nothing and it will accomplish nothing without the support of the municipalities. So it's our hope that after this presentation, you circulate this plan far and wide, and we will do the same so that we can make sure it's the best that it can be and so that we can move some of these ideas forward. This regional housing plan is one of the first of its kind in the state. As you're no doubt aware, there's no requirement for housing to be addressed at the regional level. There is a mandate for towns to address affordable housing, but it's fairly vague. As most of you are familiar, CGS Section 830J states that at least once every 5 years, each municipality shall prepare or amend and adopt an affordable housing plan for the municipality. Such plan shall specify how the municipality intends to increase the number of affordable housing developments in the municipality. And that's pretty much what we were given to work with, which in this case ended up being a positive because it provided us with some flexibility in our approach. So the RiverCOG municipalities agreed voluntarily to take a look at affordable housing and housing in general in a coordinated way. This was a natural next step following the adoption of the Regional Plan of Conservation and Development last September, which included several goals and recommendations that would impact and be impacted by housing. In addition, as Sam mentioned, 12 of the region's municipalities decided to create their state-required 830J plans as part of this process. Given this interest, we set up the plan in two parts. The first, which we initially called the Regional Housing Analysis, is now the Regional Housing Plan, which we're presenting tonight. It takes a bird's eye view of the entire region and uses a three-part methodology for assessing and addressing housing needs. The regional plan is intended to further the visions and goals set out in the RPOCD. The second part of the plan is what we've called the 830J annexes. These annexes are the 830J plans for those 12 participating municipalities. They stand alone and they were adopted independently by the participating municipalities, but they were informed by the regional analysis, and they in turn informed the regional recommendations that round out the regional plan. We will not be going over these annexes tonight, except to the extent that they informed the regional recommendations. Before we get into the text, here's a little background on where we've been. We initiated this project last summer. Our public launch for the project was held via Zoom in October 2021. We, along with our consultant team, SLR, Tyche Planning, and Goman & York, focused on collecting and analyzing regional and town data through spring 2022. We shared our major findings and methodology at the second regional presentation, also virtual, in January 2022. We conducted municipal 830J workshops in the participating towns through February and March. We finalized the 830J plans and completed the regional recommendations in June, and that brings us to date. So now I'm going to go over a bit of the Regional Housing Plan document. The Regional Housing Plan aims to achieve or move the region toward 6 objectives in furtherance of the vision in the RPOCD. These are: diversify the region's population in terms of age, race, and socioeconomic status, create a resilient workforce in the region, ensure that people who work in the region can live in close proximity to their jobs, diversify housing stock for non-traditional households, examine ways to make the existing housing stock, office, and retail space in the region function for a changing population, and encourage the orderly creation of housing of different styles and types throughout the region near existing areas of development, employment, and transit. With these overarching objectives in mind, the Regional Housing Plan utilizes a 3-part methodology for assessing housing needs and creating a framework to address them. A baseline analysis, which considers the region's demographics, economic conditions, and current housing stock in order to identify gaps between those living and working in the region and the type of housing that's readily available to them. Then a suitability analysis considers the environmental assets and constraints of the region, as well as zoning regulations, available infrastructure, and transportation access in order to identify areas in the region that are more suitable for housing development. And finally, the methodology incorporated the vision and goals in the RPOCD in order to identify targeted methods of housing growth in furtherance of that plan. The baseline assessment found that there was a mismatch between the region's population, its housing supply, and its jobs, all 3 of which have been in a stagnant to declining trend over the last several years. The region's supply of larger, older, more expensive houses on large lots are not well suited to an aging demographic or shrinking household size, nor are they likely to attract or retain a younger population, and they're not attainable to much of the population currently working in the region. The baseline assessment concludes that the region should increase its supply of smaller, modern, and more affordable units in order to provide housing opportunities for each of these groups. The suitability analysis found that although there are large areas of the region that are zoned single-family residential, and particularly low-density single-family residential, many of those areas are not necessarily appropriate for encouraging more housing. Much of that land contains important environmental resources, lacks infrastructure like sewer and water, or has limited access to alternative modes of transportation. The suitability analysis concluded that when we're focusing on growing our housing supply, these areas should be excluded in order to focus on the appropriate, i.e. more sustainable areas to direct housing growth. And finally, the RPOCD was incorporated into the analysis using that plan's sustainable, innovative, connected, and community themes. These themes are each tied to housing in the RPOCD, and this regional housing plan is intended to build on that framework. The sustainable theme charges us with growing in a balanced way, improving diversity while preserving existing natural resources. This means, and the recommendations from the RPOCD state, that we should focus new and varied housing development into targeted higher density centers. Of course, this development should be context sensitive and scaled appropriately to the surrounding community. And additional encroachment into existing open space or greenfield sites should be avoided to the extent possible. The connected theme directs us to provide housing in such a way to encourage ease of access to jobs, services, and amenities by all modes of travel and for all types of people. Multimodal transportation is central to the issue of equity. In areas where vehicle ownership may be low, providing transit options allow those without cars or those who don't drive the ability to live in the region. In addition, increasing gas and car prices disparately impact lower income individuals, making proximity to reliable alternative modes of transportation critical. Increasing housing opportunities with access to a broad range of transportation alternatives will be important to attracting a wider diversity of residents. The innovative theme suggests that this housing plan might function as an economic driver for attracting new residents and businesses, as well as supporting workers for existing local businesses. In order to support the region's essential workers, it will be important to create a diverse range of housing options to provide the region's workers an opportunity to live near their jobs. Further, in stimulating the economy, the region must simultaneously plan for and provide new housing opportunities. A portion of these should be attractive to young professionals, which will also support and attract employers. And finally, the community theme of the RPOCD is probably the most closely tied to housing. Its vision directs us to provide housing that is attractive to a diversity of residents, including new residents, and provide existing residents with potential new options. In order to achieve this vision and create more diverse and vibrant communities, our region will need to create a range of housing options in and around community centers that are supported by multimodal transportation options, attractive to younger residents, supportive of senior populations, affordable to a variety of income levels, and suitable for varying household sizes and types. After establishing the types of housing needed in the region and the targeted areas, the regional housing plan also considers housing market capacity. This is because we will be largely dependent on the private sector to build housing. Therefore, it's important to understand what the market will support. This section considers the housing market demand drivers, jobs, population, household formation, and income to determine that the current housing market in the region is weak. This is exacerbated by soaring prices of materials and shortage of labor. Under the current trajectory and based on historic periods of low growth and weak demand drivers, it's predicted that the region can only support an estimated 200 units per year. If we work to implement the RPOCD vision, growing our economy and improving our population projections, we may enter into a growth trajectory which would support 600 units per year. Because of the need for more affordable and diverse housing is real in the region, and because creating a better housing supply is part of implementing the RPOCD, it's important that we are strategic in the creation of new housing units while the demand is weak. Now, it was after taking the regional analysis to this point in our process that we paused to focus on the creation of the municipal 830J plans. These plans were created for Cromwell, Portland, Middletown, East Hampton, East Haddam, Killingworth, Chester, Deep River, Essex, Clinton, Lyme, and Old Lyme. You will not find these plans in the document we're circulating for review, but they will ultimately be attached to the final document as an appendix. If you're interested, you can find these plans on the websites for each of these towns at this point. Throughout the drafting of these plans, the idea of coordinating efforts and sharing resources came up often. Each municipality was interested in what other municipalities were doing, and once the plans were finalized, we looked through the recommendations to identify areas of consensus and overlap. Plans for municipalities that didn't participate in the regional process were also reviewed and incorporated into the analysis. This table, which you will find included in the plan, shows areas of alignment among the region's municipalities as determined based on the goals and recommendations in their 830J plans. The regional housing plan emphasizes that ongoing coordination and cooperation is essential if the region intends to grow its supply of housing sustainably. Areas of alignment among the municipalities are an easy place to begin this coordination effort and set up a framework for moving forward. Based on the areas of alignment, along with the findings and analysis, 3 overarching recommendations were created to facilitate the implementation of this plan. The first recommendation is to create a housing toolkit. Many of the overlapping goals of the municipalities require regulatory and policy changes. RiverCOG will create a housing toolkit that will support this process. The toolkit, which would be web-based, would include background information, best practices research, and sample language for regulatory and policy changes. And this information would be made readily available for every municipality to use if they so choose. The second recommendation is to study transit-oriented development. Housing opportunity near transit stations is key to equitable and sustainable growth. Locating new housing with a mixture of office and retail near transit can lower the impact of development on land resources, make transit a more viable alternative to cars, and create more vibrant and accessible places to live and work across the region. RiverCOG, in coordination with the towns with Shoreline East stations, will conduct a transit-oriented development study to analyze the capacity of the land to accommodate walkable, bikeable, mixed-use development, and also consider alternative solutions for using those transit stations to improve access and connectivity. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, this plan proposes that the region establish a regional housing commission. Establishing a housing commission that operates on the regional level is the easiest way to ensure regional coordination on housing issues. This should be created as a voluntary association of the region's municipalities with representation from each community. It could be hosted by RiverCOG, which would provide staffing and support. Once established, it's envisioned that the role of this commission would grow over time in 3 suggested phases. Phase 1 would focus on education, outreach, and partnership. Regional Housing Commission would serve as the go-to information resource on housing and community development. Providing education on housing programs and resources, as well as utilizing a dedicated housing point person, were high on the list of overlapping municipal recommendations. This approach would allow the region's municipalities to utilize economies of scale and share the same information source. The commission could also serve as the primary point of contact for partnering and coordinating efforts with nonprofits like Hope Partnership and Habitat for Humanity across the region, as well as acting as the coordinator for developers looking to create housing in the region. The idea here is that developers, nonprofits, and members of the public would not have to scour multiple websites or town halls across the region in order to create or obtain housing here. The commission would be informed on what each of the municipalities has, wants, or needs, and will be able to connect interested parties with one another. Phase 2 for the commission would involve data collection and analysis. It's recommended that the commission be tasked with developing a methodology and creating a regional housing needs assessment every 5 years that would support the creation of municipal affordable housing plan updates. The methodology should consider factors like population growth, job markets, access to transportation, access to infrastructure, and environmental assets and constraints to project housing needs, and should provide a framework for municipalities to coordinate those needs in a sustainable way. And finally, phase 3 for the commission would involve expanding operations. Once the commission is established, the member municipalities may choose to give the commission additional authority. It could function or partner with a regional land bank, create and administer a regional housing trust fund. It could operate as or with a regional housing land trust, and or could act as or partner with regional or municipal housing authorities.
Just a minute.
There are pros and cons to each of these options, which are preliminarily sketched out in the plan. However, which, if any of these options are ultimately pursued, would be a future decision of the commission based on further deliberation. So that, in a nutshell, is the plan. You can find it at rivercog.org/RHP/comments. It's also listed on the project page. And I should be able to reshare so that you can see. 1 second. All right, are you seeing my web browser now?
Yes.
So here is the public comment page for the plan, and you can find your copy here. If you click it, you can click this link to submit comments online, and it will ask for your name, your town, your email address, the page numbers, your comment references, and your comment. Or you can also email your comments to info@rivercog.org. And if I just go back to the PowerPoint slides, if you do choose to send an email, please also include your name, your town, and the page number associated with your comment. And the subject line should read RHP comments. So what next? Please take the time to read the plan and circulate it far and wide for comment. We will be sending out this presentation as well as links to the document and the comment form following the meeting. And we will be ready to take up comments at your next RPC meeting and provide opportunities for discussion. I'm sure there will be plenty. And just to wrap things up, I'd like to note that we do acknowledge there's plenty of work to be done to improve our housing situation in the region. And it's been our hope with this plan to create a foundation and a framework for that future work to be built on in a coordinated and sustainable way. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Megan. That was a great presentation. Ben, did you want to add anything?
No, just that it's been a pleasure working on this and working closely with Megan and learning all about what's going on in the region. And it was really exciting for me to see, mutual collaboration and considering, how to address these problems from a regional standpoint. It's been a pleasure and exciting sort of first project in a full-time role over there.
Well, we're glad you participated, and we think this will be a really great presentation for the public to see, and hopefully we get this word far and wide as it says. So, Bill Neal, go ahead.
It's a little quick. I wonder if you'd be able to give that presentation, like for example, to Westbrook, which wasn't in on the having you write our plan.
Absolutely. We would hope to send the recording of it, but if you would like a live presentation, I'd be happy to do it.
The recording's a good idea. I mean, it's a good presentation and quicker than going through the whole plan, which I had a look at. But okay, I'll at least talk to our chair and planner and see what we want to do. Thanks.
And Bill, if I can mention, by the way, part of my work on this was to help Megan with regional alignment and areas where everyone was falling in. And I will say that Westbrook highlighted it as one of their first recommendations to continue a partnership with RiverCOG. And so it was exciting. And I have to say that, I reached out to the planner and I'm sure that they'll fit in this.
Okay. Stephanie, got your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, Megan, I think that it really, what you just showed us was a really well presented, clear, it was concise, it was about as specific as you can get while still saying you might or you might not. And it was a really good summary of that huge plan. So thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. Other comments?
Yeah,
Raul. Go ahead, Raul.
Yeah, I share Stephanie's viewpoint. I thought that was a great job, Megan. And so much so that I'm wondering if there is a possibility to have her presentation, live presentation, that is, before the actual COG, because I think really the COG, the selectmen, the COG itself really needs to see this in order to generate some comments. Without that leadership, I don't think we're going to get comments. Any questions?
I'd be
Okay.
happy to.
Great, okay. I see we have, well, Anthony, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I think it was a great presentation and I love the concept of it. The one thing that I guess I'm missing out of it, or I question just from my industry standpoint, is grappling with the costs of making housing affordable, because we have to be able to afford to build these places. And that's the struggle. So where is the money coming from, and how do we balance that? That's kind of just something that's popping in my head.
Absolutely.
And I think, oh, I'm sorry, Megan.
No, you go ahead.
I think, Anthony, that's such an important point to bring up is the logistics of building right now are challenging. And I think that part of the idea behind the regional commission would be to bring together advocates, to bring together these developers who are doing this work right now to get, to begin that
Get some
conversation
of those
about
people
how it's
on the
working.
commission, right?
Yeah, and to hopefully have that serve as a way to disseminate that information outward, because I think there's people doing the work, but I think there's a disconnect, and you have all these. We learned a ton about the Hope Partnership, who's doing work right here in the region, and getting that information about how they function would be critical.
Yeah, I would just add to that, well said, Ben, and pulling together, every aspect of building housing, making sure that the people who have the finances, the people who want to develop, the nonprofits, the people with the land, getting all of those people together and having one resource for them to come to, and just basically matchmaking all of those things.
All right. Let's see, any other comments? Raul, you still have your hand up, and Anthony, you still have your hand up. You have anything to add, or? All right, just making sure.
All
Nope,
right.
love what
Okay.
they both said.
Paul.
I like it all. Thanks.
Paul, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Just as a point of information, I'm on the Middlesex Chamber Housing Subcommittee, and we're trying to put together a panel conversation. And I think, Sam, you're going to be asked to get involved from the chamber. We're looking at bringing on a housing authority, a developer type, a contractor. And then the goal is to try to attract smaller builders and bring them up to speed as to what the trials and tribulations are working with public financing and all of that entails. And as my practice is, we do a lot of housing. We do a fair amount of affordable housing, and it is a complicated scenario to get CHAPA funding and HUD funding and DOH funding. And so the goal is to try to attract, again, the smaller builders. And maybe this committee can help expand that or put the press out on it so that we can maybe get more people showing up. Because as part of Middlefield, I'm looking at, and we have our own housing plan, and we're looking at trying to come up with areas to bring in. It's the 10 to 20 units that we're missing in the smaller towns that we need to try to attract. And it is a cost thing, as Anthony said. And how do we bring the contractors in and make it less intimidating for them? So just so people know that, we're trying to do that at the chamber level. We're going to be reaching out to the river, to our planning committee and try to get as many people there as small contractors that we may know. That's really the audience, is to get them in and get them comfortable and show them that it can work.
I'll just add that, a public-private partnership like that is going to be essential for helping bring down the costs. Like, for example, if the town, if there's town-owned land, and that in exchange for being able to get that land, there's a deed restriction that keeps those units affordable. That could be the partnership that takes the cost of land out of the equation. Some things are going to be really difficult, like construction materials are very expensive these days. The cost of labor has gone up. So those are two things that we don't have a lot of control over, but that might support more adaptive reuse of existing buildings, which need fewer of the construction materials. So I think we're getting a little bit of feedback from another meeting.
Sam, along those lines, I'm wondering if Megan there was a movement a while back to get accessory housing from, more easier to accomplish. And that involves changes to regulations. Is that something that your plan even talks about, or is that a dead end?
Absolutely. That was something that we were planning on putting into the regional housing toolkit, looking at kind of best practices and sample regulations, and kind of putting that out for towns to make use of, to make it easier.
And also, all cities and towns were directed by the law that passed last year to, that would legalize accessory housing units unless the towns opted out. But many towns have opted out so they could institute their own accessory housing unit regulations. So I think for much of our region, they will be, they'll be allowed in many places. But the bigger question that's always in my head about accessory dwelling units is the cost, and who is going to spend that. People are going to spend that money for the accessory dwelling unit for a family member, for an elderly parent, for potentially a child returning from college. So there is a lag time before that unit would ever be on the public market as a rental. But I think that is a good approach for even the smallest, most rural towns, squeezing in some small rental units into existing structures.
And also I would add, even if it doesn't count as 830G housing, it does provide housing for seniors, your parents, or young people, your kids. So it is actually accomplishing some of the goals that we're looking to accomplish. I believe every single one of the towns that participated in our process had some sort of recommendation related to accessory dwelling units. So that was one of the first things that came up for our toolkit. And I think some of that would also include promotion, more information sharing, and publicizing of accessory dwelling units and how people can create them, in addition to the regulatory changes, because you can change all the regulations you want, but if people don't know about it, or they're not excited about it, or it's not that easy for them, then they're not going to do it anyways.
So any other questions or comments?
That sounds like we're good. So what I would say is, first of all, we should come up with some kind of a plan for distributing this to all of the people that would have a say. And even in the towns that are not part of this, Megan, I think it's important. Durham went their own way along with Middlefield, I think, and really makes more sense, in my opinion, if someday they come back around and we're all joined with this plan. So what do we think is appropriate as far as distribution to get this out there?
I would assume what we were planning to do is send it to, all of our planning and zoning commissions, to all of the CEOs, to our kind of general distribution mailing list, as well as posting it on all of our social media and our webpage, and to, really anybody else. Hopefully everyone that we send it to sends it to everybody else in their mailing lists. But I am open to other suggestions.
So the only suggestion I would add is just consider some of these nonprofits that are involved in this type of thing and can maybe be of assistance, the whole partnership and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Just make sure that they're in the distribution. Catherine, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sometimes people forget we have a newspaper. That's the best way to get the word out. I didn't hear that in Megan's list. So invite Cassandra Day to write an article about it, because as much as you would like to think that people read a social media of RiverCOG, I think more people are going to see it in the Hartford Courant and the Middletown Press. You might also reach out to Tom Condon at Connecticut Mirror. So those are my best my best leads. Thanks. For
Absolutely.
Thank you,
And
Catherine.
it's good to get the publicity as well, not only for the plan, but for the folks that worked on it, the RiverCOG folks, and to let people know that we're actually, engaged and working on these things.
Yeah, we actually have been reaching out to those to some of those papers. We did talk to the reporter from the Connecticut Mirror who's covering affordable housing. So we will be talking further with her. We've also talked to the Connecticut Mirror, and we will get this out to the other a press release to the other papers as well. And thank you for that name. We'll follow up with that.
Sam, do we need a motion in order to kick the get the clock started?
I don't think it wouldn't hurt. So if you want to ask for that motion, you can go ahead.
Okay, so if someone would like to make a motion that we formally start the clock for public comment on the draft affordable housing plan.
So moved.
Moved by Bill Neal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Raoul. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstaining? I declare the motion passed. Thank you.
And
Anything
so
else for on that one, Sam?
Sure. Just to ask all the members, please get your comments in early, because what we will be doing for next month's meeting is organizing the comments that we've received up to that point, and then going through any major ones with the RPC as to major comments and additions. If everything looks like it's going to be in good shape, for 2 days later for the COG meeting, it could then be up for adoption for the RiverCOG. But if not, we can hold it open until the next COG meeting in September. But that's where we're keeping fingers crossed to try to get it adopted within the next month. But we'll see. Although you'll see that it's a number, it looks like a very sizable document. A good portion of it is illustrations of the text, whether it be pictures or graphs or maps. You'll notice that there's a couple graphs and maps that still need to be updated. And I think SLR is supposed to be getting that to us very soon. We're going to, if we have to send out a new updated version with those corrected charts or maps, we will do that ASAP.
All right. And I thought I saw a hand from Tony Baldock. Tony, did you want to comment on?
No, I was opening the chat, and then when the chat shifts over to close it again, I hit the raise hand every time.
No worries. That's fine. All right. And Catherine, you're good? You just have your hand up?
Oh, I'll take it down. Thank you.
No worries. All right. Very well. Great job, everyone. Thank you again. And this is going to hopefully affect some positive change in the region. So thank you. All right. With that, we will move on to item number 9, which is updates. And we'll start with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan update schedule.
So we're joined tonight by Rob Harriman, our senior transportation planner. Every 4 years, we update our regional transportation plan, which is a very long range document that is usually about 25 years in time horizon, but we update it every 4 years. And so we're just starting that process for our update that's due next spring. So I'm going to turn over to Rob to give you a little update as to that upcoming project.
Yep, as Sam said, our last MTP was from 2019. Federal planning regulations require a 4-year update. The list of projects will have to be modeled by DOT probably over the summer. Excuse me. We are looking, let's see here, the feds need to approve it by May 24th. So working backwards, it would be about April 12th would be the latest any of the COGs in the state could approve, which would bring us up to our March 27th or 22nd COG meeting. March 22nd of 2023 would be when we're looking for endorsement in the plan. We'd probably start our, the formal public comment period in February, but between basically now in February, it's going to be one of our major tasks to start working on the update.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Rob?
I will make one more, I'll make a comment just to add on to what Rob said. I don't know if, yeah, it's not on, this is, I think it fits best under Metropolitan Transportation Plan. A couple weeks ago, the DOT invited all the COGs to attend what's called a lean process, which is a process where you take existing processes and you pull them apart and you try to find efficiencies or where are the inefficient parts of the process. And I was on a subgroup that looked into this Metropolitan Transportation Plan process. And we made a lot of progress with DOT on identifying how we can do better. One of the big issues that we have with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and it's a little less of an issue for our region, but it's a bigger issue in some of the more urban regions, is the project list that the DOT is working off of seems to be a mystery to everyone. We don't understand how the projects get on the list and how that all works. And we've come up with but that project list sort of drives the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we have come up with an ongoing planning process that every 6 months, the COGs will meet with DOT, talk about the projects on the list, talk about recently completed corridor studies, recently completed transportation studies, and start figuring out the process. Okay, we have a Route 66 study. How do we get the safety recommendations from that into the state's capital planning process? And because that process, you know, it's surprising to me that process, that clear process of going from plans and studies to a project is not well defined up there. And so we're very hopeful that the leadership at DOT will take the recommendations of this lean process and actually implement them. And we'll have an ongoing conversation with them that when we finish our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, that recommendations in it actually go into a process of vetting and prioritization at the DOT. And so we know that our town and cities priorities are being addressed. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. This is that we have some new people in charge at DOT with the wave of retirements, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're sincere about wanting to improve the communication between the towns, the COGs, and the DOT.
Sounds good. Certainly an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Comments for questions for Sam or Ben or anyone? Rob? Catherine, go ahead. You have your hand up.
I would like to be emailed so I can participate, or at least as a listener, in those every 6 month meetings. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Others wishing to speak? All right. Thank you very much for the update on that. And we will move on to B, which is the Regional Agricultural Council update. Janice, are you going to fill us in on this?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Last winter, the Regional Agriculture Council, which is the only one in the state, just to put that out there, applied for a grant from the Department of More Farmers Farming in our region through land that had been farmed, that could be farmed, or town land, land trust land, whatever, get more land farmed. And we did that through promoting no-till farming, a practice that is more sustainable to the land. It protects the water, the amount of runoff. It uses less fuel, less time for the farmers, and less chemical uses. The program is open to all farmers in our region. The grant was for $49,000 and it's a 2-year grant. We purchased 3 pieces of equipment: a no-till drill or a seed planter, a transplanter, and a roller crimper. And the process is, first you grow a cover crop on your land, be it vetch, rye, legumes, whatever. You'd probably do a soil test and find out what your soil needs, plant those crops. When in the fall, you would use the roller crimper and it breaks off the grass so that you now have a protect the soil with all of the organic materials that we're just growing. That stays on the soil so that you have a mass over the top, protecting runoff, protecting all uses of the soil. In the spring, then you would use either our no-till drill or the transplanter, depending on what you're planting. And that's a process of both of the machines run a small hole into the soil, either do the transplanting or plant a seed and then cover it up. So really, you don't even see that there's anything happening. There's no plowing, there's no turning of the soil and ruining all those great layers of all the organic material and all the worms and bugs in there. It's just left, and you keep layering more organic matter on top of it. We got our 3 pieces of equipment just recently. We had on June 18th a demo day when all the pieces of equipment were shown to the public and to the farmers, and they could learn how to use the equipment or see how it worked and see if they were interested in applying for the program. We're now accepting applications, and that is available on our knowyourfarmers.org on our website. So we're accepting any farmers in our region, RiverCOG region. We'll be vetting those applications and hopefully starting here shortly with programs for our local farmers. There's a calendar that the farmers will be working with to reserve the equipment. And we hope to be moving forward with it all. It's just starting with the equipment just arriving. But the farmers that have been involved with the process are very excited about it and spreading the word to questions.
Thank you, Janice. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of buzz around, I know around Durham here about this equipment, because this is the difference between like when people talk about stuff they should do and they actually do it. So now with the equipment is there, the equipment can be borrowed. I've heard it's pretty much state of the art. And I know that there are several farmers in Durham, including myself, that will take advantage of this at some point, because other people have already asked me about the demonstration that was on the 18th.
Yeah.
So
I'll just
go
add
ahead,
to
Sam.
that. I was there at the demonstration, and I walked in knowing very little, and it's just and with the 3 pieces of equipment that the RAC has since purchased with the help of the COG, I think we can do a lot of good. The roller crimper, the way it kills the cover crop and sort of lays it down, and then either the no-till planter or drill or the transplanter, how you can just plant right through the cover crop, and talking to some of the farmers there, talking about how it saved them from having to irrigate because the cover crop keeps the moisture in the ground, as opposed to when you plow it and that opens the soil, the moisture evaporates. It talked about how expensive diesel is these days, and every step of the process that you can cut out is money saved and time saved. So by being able to just lay down the cover crop and plant through it was just really, and then finally just discussion about how that cover crop holds any fertilizer that you put on the soil in place, and makes cultivation on a grade, on a hillside, much less of a risk, because if you plow and you get a big rainstorm, suddenly you're dealing with a mud flow, and by keeping the cover crop there, there's no erosion. So it just was really interesting. It was really these machines look like a lot of fun to drive around on your tractor, and just want to thank Janice for her good work with our region's farmers.
Yes, outstanding. All right,
So if everybody
questions or
could share
comments?
the word, share the information here with your local farmers, please do. And we can get them all involved in the project.
All right, I
I'm
see
waiting for your
Paul has his
application,
hand up.
Frank.
Yes.
How large or small a farm are we talking about? There's some of us that have our own little personal farms at home on the back of our property. Is there a size limit to where it makes sense?
Well, the drill is 8 feet wide. So if you're using that, I think the roller crimper is 5 feet wide. You need a pretty good sized space to be able to run these pieces back and forth.
Between a half acre and an acre. I'm just trying, there are people that I know that have farms. And again, if you do a half acre or an acre of property, is that too small or is that?
Absolutely not. No,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Others? All right. And Janice, you will be getting my application shortly.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the plow routine and it's rough and it's rough on the soil because you're basically trying to flip everything over and then it's exposed to the erosion and everything else. So we haven't done it in a long time. We actually stopped doing it, but the idea of using a plug planter is a nice one. So,
great.
All right, other questions or comments before we move on? All right, let's go to the next item, which is the CEDS. Sam, you want to take this?
Excuse me, Frank.
Yes.
I didn't know if you said raise your comments or what you said.
Oh.
I did want to say, Janice, I did not know this was going on and you are my heroine. I do not know of any other place in Connecticut who's been trying this, and I personally have been doing no-till gardening for 4 years, Hugelkultur. To see it done at a regional, to make a regional offer and to use a grant so laser focused is extraordinary.
Excellent. It's all the farmers' ideas. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to Sam. You want to take CEDS?
Yeah, so that is our comprehensive economic development strategy. So it's a good thing that we're wrapping up the regional housing plan because that is Megan's next project. So Megan, why don't you give an update on the sets?
Sure. So we have selected our steering committee representing various business and business-related interests in the region. We held our first introductory meeting with that group a few weeks ago. We are in the process of creating a targeted survey that we'll be releasing in late July. The project website should be live soon, and that will have a project description, information on the team, and frequently asked questions. And that will live at rivercog.org/plan/CEDS, CEDS. The summer months will be largely focused on doing the background research and data collection, as well as maybe some stakeholder interviews and also that survey. And we'll start on community engagement workshops in the fall.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments for Megan on the economic plan? All right. We'll move on to the next item, which is COG county equivalency. So here, it looks like the federal government is going to recognize the COG structure as being similar to counties, which is very different. Sam, you want to?
All right.
Want to talk about this?
This is a project I've been working with the state and some of my COG colleagues on for a number of years. And at the beginning of the month, the Census Bureau sort of surprised us with publishing in the Federal Register their final rulemaking. So we had requested that the COGs in the state's 9 planning regions be considered county equivalents for statistical purposes by the Census Bureau. Currently, the Census Bureau collects data along the lines of the traditional counties, which is great for time series, but is not very useful for any unit of Connecticut government. For example, RiverCOG does cover all of Middlesex County, which is convenient, but we do have 2 towns in New London County. In my old COG in Waterbury, we had portions of 4 counties, and we didn't have the largest municipality in any of them. So the county data was completely useless when it comes to the county business patterns, which is a big product of the Department of Commerce, the Census of Agriculture, which is from USDA, and just general general data that the census only puts out on the county level. We're sort of out of luck in Connecticut. So this was put forward to the feds with the support of the previous governor, and then the current governor reaffirmed it last year. And the plan is that after this year, they will start, the Census Bureau will start releasing data along the planning region lines. Data for time series for the traditional counties can be reaggregated because all counties are made up of whole towns. So that data can be more easily reaggregated. But the eventual big change for this is that now that the Census Bureau considers the planning regions to be the county equivalent, it doesn't take much to establish that the COGs are the government agency responsible for the planning regions. And that will open up status with the federal government that the COGs currently don't have. And we will be able to apply for more grants than we can apply for currently. And it gives the towns more options to work through their COGs. So I'll give you an example. Margot Burns, our environmental planner last year, completed an update of our natural hazard mitigation plans. That was a regional project, but it ended up having to go through 15 adoption hearings. Although I think those hearings were useful in that the town legislative bodies were able to see the plans and know what they're being adopting. Programs like that could now be adopted on the COG level with presentations to each of the boards of selectmen. Other federal programs such as the flood insurance program that helps lower flood insurance rates. For the amount of work it would take one of our shoreline towns like Westbrook to be part of the community rating system, we could actually get everyone in the planning region into that program and save everyone on flood insurance rates. So it just gives another option for the towns as ways to work through RiverCOG. I talked to some friends over in upstate New York and asked them how this works over there. And the way that it works there is that cities and towns can either go on their own as they do today, or they have the option to work through their county planning department. But it's really up to the city or town what they want to do. And in the future, if there's ever any direct funding to counties, as there were under the CARES Act and under ARPA, that money would go to the COG and to the first selectman to decide how that's spent, instead of that money going to the state. In the past, any money earmarked for the county went to the state. That's how it worked under the CARES Act. Under the American Rescue Plan, the money went to the towns specifically because our congressional delegation wrote that in there. But typically, any money that goes to counties goes to the state of Connecticut and then it disappears. So, so I think our CEOs will prefer having control and a say over how that money could be spent. But it's exciting change. It's been many years in the works, and we'll keep you informed as new opportunities pop up because of this. So,
Hey, questions or comments for Sam?
Well, just congratulations. I know, Sam, you've been working at this thing for many years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just going to say that.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And also, I think what's also really important to remember is that it doesn't change anything with Connecticut law. So we still have home rule. It doesn't make the COGs county governments. We're still an extension of your town governments. Our leadership is the same as your leadership. So it's really just an extension, but it gives us more options and more opportunities. So that's what's exciting about it.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you for your work, Sam, on that. It's good to see it finally come to fruition. All right, no further questions on that. We will move on to hot topics in land use seminar.
All right, so I'll kick this over to Ben, but every year, the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association and the Connecticut Bar Association holds a really great event where they go through all of the major legal cases of the past year that affect land use law. And then they give us a briefing. And this was the first one in person in 3 years. So that was exciting to go to. They also covered a number of other topics at the day-long event. But Ben can maybe go over a few of the big cases that are of interest. And I think he sent out to you the handouts from that day's event. So go ahead, Ben.
So I do owe people the handouts. I unfortunately had misplaced my physical copies and just got my hands on electronic scans. It is 8 o'clock on a Monday, so I won't put you all to sleep early with highly nuanced legal arguments. But and I encourage everyone to read the things that are distributed. But a couple of the cases that were involved. Involved 830G applicants, and both of the cases sided with the 830G arguments. So the town lost. I think it sort of reiterates the point that it's very, very difficult for towns to deny applications when 830G is invoked. Another one of the more major cases that got presented was actually seen before the Supreme Court. It involved a law in Texas that required, it had different rules for digitized signs like billboards. There was an ordinance that said that digital boards couldn't be used. Essentially, the fear was that the signs would be displaying off-premise information for, and the Supreme Court ultimately decided that the off-premise digitization ordinance, they were allowed, that Texas was allowed to ban it. So that if you're into sign law, that's a fun one. Couple of the other topics that were covered during the conference involved the formation of a legislative agenda for next session. As we know, this is an election year, so there will likely be significant turnover and potentially new leadership in a variety of our legislative committees that obviously pass laws that impact all of us. And so my hopes are to join the legislative subcommittee to keep a better eye on where CCAPA sort of creates their agenda and how they sort of advocate on behalf of planners. So I will take questions on that, and I'll just give Sam a quick legislative update, just happenings. For those of you who may not know, Connecticut is currently in the process of what's called the Commission on Connecticut's Development and Future. This came out of the Public Act 21-29, which was the major overhaul to our ADUs, the character language, the bill from 2021 session, which basically called for a series of subgroups to be created to study how to basically look at Connecticut's future from a planning aspect. So there are a number of meetings that are going on. If you watch the CGA page, you can get an idea, but essentially the state's trying to figure out a way to align municipal, state, and local and regional plans and create some sort of pathway between them, much like what we're doing in the region with this regional housing plan. Create alignment so that we don't keep studying, making plans and having them all sort of exist in silos. So that's going on. If anyone has any questions about that, let me know. And finally, the application process for legalized cannabis did close, and there were over 36,000 lottery tickets bought for establishments with 54 permits available. So that just happened this last week as well. So let me know if you need more information.
All right, thank you, Ben. Are there questions or comments for Ben? All right, don't see any. No hands? All right, thank you for your report, Appreciate it, Ben. That brings us to item number 10, which is miscellaneous state, regional and or local planning issues. I'm not sure if we have any. Do we have anything that we should be discussing here? I can tell you that Durham did finally pass its cannabis permissive ordinance. And I will tell you that wasn't a whole lot of public comment on it. Kind of surprised me, but that's where it was. And so
What is it? Is it a prohibition or is it a?
no, it's a somewhat restrictive regulation that allows it in certain areas, certain you know, whether it's micro cultivator, different categories, but almost all special permit. And so, you know, someone would have to come in and put an application in and go through the process. But I don't know that we'll see anything, but we felt that it was worth trying to just see what was out there and allow some kind of an opening without going, you know, hog wild and opening up the gates to everything. So.
And if I piggyback on that, Frank, because Deep River actually has cannabis on their agenda and it hasn't passed yet. But the same thing, we have had no one from the public, and we've had this as an open discussion for six months, and none of the public has shown up.
Yeah, and it's strange because I made sure that you know, it was on the town website and they publicized it, and we tried to get the word out because, you know, there are people that have strong opinions one way or the other. A lot of people were in favor of it. And, you know, early on when we started the exercise, we got, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 people came. I would say it was a 4-2 split about how they felt, but they did feel the way they felt. I mean, they were pretty strong about it one way or the other. But at the end of the day, we didn't get a lot of public comment. And I imagine it's because, you know, when you get an application, then they'll all come out in droves. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right, because that was my feeling too. Is I was like, I expected more people to show up and be for or against, and it just it hasn't been that way. So
yeah. Catherine, you got your hand up? Go ahead.
Yes, if you're up to miscellaneous. Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Okay. I would like the email addresses of the bike committee. Number 2, I don't know if the website has been updated, but even my name after so many months, 8 months, has not been included. So I would like.
Yeah, we can ask Elijah to look at those things. Yep. Okay.
And I would like there to be the email addresses of the RiverCOG commissioners on that website. Last, I was cut off after the no plow equipment. So let me recap. Janice is my heroine. Number 2, Tufts University started a program to teach new farmers how to farm, and they offered it in other languages in addition to English. This was over 7 years ago, so there must be huge success by now, but I know they included Spanish and Vietnamese. Number 3, I hope the no plow mentality, that if it's being embraced in Durham, might I just say, it will be embraced everywhere. I hope this leads to municipalities.
Sounds like we lost you again, Catherine.
Did you hear about the compost?
Hello, Catherine.
Hello?
Yeah, I think you got cut off again, Catherine.
Do you hear me?
We do now.
Okay. I said, I hope this program leads to municipalities talking about compost, city compost programs, the way recycling was once a new idea 30 years ago. And the last thing, again, the newspapers and the, you know, Connecticut wide website offer this equipment, because I don't think we heard about it in Middletown. So thank you again, Frank and Janice.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Anything else under miscellaneous?
Yeah, Frank, this is Nick. Can you hear me?
Nick.
Hi,
Yeah, we can
how are
hear you.
you?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry for the problems early on.
No
But,
worries.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate my comment that in our last meeting for P and Z that we passed our affordable housing plan with some minor editorial grammatical changes that had to be made, but otherwise it's been passed. And we did want to make sure that as part of our assessment, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, were included as part of our permissible use and including in our planning and zoning plans. And also, we thought affordable housing and wanted to make sure it was part of our POCD, which is upcoming. So we wanted to kind of tie the two together. We thought that was important, having a piece of that in there. And you know, it's not just new housing, is what we discussed a lot about. That is, it's also there's also, we have a lot of 2-family housing and mixed use development areas, and 2-family housing and those that use vouchers and possibly the CHA type of housing. All those can be applied toward affordable housing, and we need to make sure that we don't just narrow ourselves to just what's being built new, because we're running out of development space here. So it's not just new housing, but it can be a whole cadre of different implementations that could be used for affordable housing. So
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Nick.
we passed ours, and we're looking forward to moving forward through our process here in town. So
Fantastic. Thank you. All right, others? Any others? Catherine? Okay.
Actually, I'll just say something. So on Friday, I went to Dan Morley at OPM's retirement party. We're losing a lot of talent at the state because of the retirement deal that was approved 4 years ago. And so it's gonna be interesting moving forward the rest of this year after all these people, after the impact of all these people leaving is really felt. So Dan Morley was one of the major facilitators for the COG at OPM. He was the one that we sent our regional plan to. He's the one who we sent our regional the A30J plans to, and his retirement at the end of the month he's going to be sorely missed. So yeah, they did hire for his position Rebecca Auger, who was previously on our regional housing plan team, so at SLR. So it's interesting how people are just sort of moving. There's some musical chairs, but it's going to be an interesting few months as all these retirements are finalized and there's new people coming in at the state. So,
okay. All right, thank you, Sam. Any others? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Moved by Raul and seconded by Bill Neal. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? I declare the motion passed. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and stay safe.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.